Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is an NPC bodybuilder. Today's guest is Tim Cline. Tim, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Tim. So I'm really looking forward to have an awesome conversation with you, Tim. Getting to kind of know you a little bit more. I don't know much about you, so before we kind of get into your backstory a little bit more in depth, I want to ask you, who are a few of your favorite bodybuilders of all time?
So when you ask this question, most people go by the physique. I'm never wowed by I'm wowed by people's physique, but what I admire is knowledge. I go for knowledge. Who is smart? Who am I going to follow? So Dorian Yates had both of that. Smart, very intelligent training. I like a lot of his philosophies on training and nutrition and cardio and all those type of things. So he's by far my favorite. My favorite to watch when I got going in, another one was Cutler, Jay Cutler. And there's a recent guy who's really good. He's not the most notable as far as his competitive, but his knowledge is John Jewett. He's one of my favorites to watch. And it has to do with the knowledge base. To me, that is everything, because my job is coaching people in personal training. So it's not always, I get wowed by the genetic people, but I'm more into the intelligence aspect and doing things that I can apply to my clients and myself to better myself. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. There's guys who are doing nationals who can eat ice cream every day and they're probably going to place very well. But if I did that, I would be a nobody. We wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right.
So
now I want to ask you this to kind of just piggyback off what you're talking about, respecting somebody, yes, for their physique, but more so for their knowledge. Now, if somebody has the knowledge, but they don't have the bodybuilding experience or the physique to kind of back it up, is that something that kind of like holds you back a little bit in respecting them as much as somebody as like a John Jewett or a Dorian Yates, where they had the physique, they had the bodybuilding experience, and they had the knowledge? Touch on that for a quick minute.
Everything is how you apply it. Okay. Certain people are very good at regurgitating information, but actually applying something is a little bit different. So for instance, there are guys out there, Lane Norton can see this and get mad at me, but Lane Norton has great information, but then when you watch him train, he's humping the T-bar row machine. Okay. His form is not good. So I like his nutrition. I like his certain things, but his biomechanics are off. When I watch people, I look at different aspects. There's certain people I look at for nutrition, certain people I look at for training, certain people I look at, like I said, supplements, nutrition, and some for training. And then some for health supplements, a guy named Dante Trudell. So I use these people as resources to study. Now, going specifically what you're saying, those people are harder to find because a lot of people only go face value. How do you look? So how I look is a big aspect of my business. That's why I compete. I don't compete like some of these guys who are UPS driver and just do it because of the love of bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is very hard and miserable at certain stages. And luckily I have a significant other. Her name is Kara, who's competing with me, and we do it together, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable. We do all of our workouts together. We did our cardio this morning together. Makes things a little more enjoyable, but it's a very hard process.
Yeah.
But remember, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's a huge part of the process. So I think it builds people mentally, not just physically. Everybody that I know competes, they end up usually getting a good job because they know how to push themselves past a certain level to be successful. Every one of those people doing nationals should have that in them. So going to your question, those people are harder to find, like that have the knowledge base, but maybe not look as good. It's harder for them to be found, but eventually they are found. some at certain points, if that makes any sense.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So Tim, at what age did you start lifting weights? And then why did you start lifting weights at that specific age?
I would say 7th and 8th grade, I got into weightlifting, and it all had to do with WCW and WWF wrestling. That was huge back then. Goldberg, Scott Steiner, The Rock, all of those guys you'd be watching, and they're big and strong. And I think a lot of people got into weightlifting because of those guys, because that was big in the 90s. Wrestling was huge. That actually what got me into lifting. And then I played football, baseball, wrestling, all in high school. And then, you have to weight train if you want to be good at football. I was one of the team captains for football. That's what got me into training people. I'm very good leader as far as pushing people, putting things into a perspective that people can understand things. And then also when I went to Eastern Illinois University right after high school, I decided to quit playing sports and focus on school. But all of that time I was training. I started off powerlifting my first 3 years of college. I actually won Mr. EIU powerlifting, and then my senior year won EIU bodybuilding. I switched over because I was getting too fat. I was getting too chunky, but it helped build those neurons, that neurological system to help with my bodybuilding.
Excellent. Okay. So I like to use that latter question, Tim, just to kind of transition into my guests, a childhood and their upbringing. So you already mentioned sports. You mentioned kind of being a fan of the WWE, the WWF wrestling, but first of all, talk about kind of like where you grew up, talk about your family dynamics, talk about a little bit more of maybe like what sports taught you. Just talk to us a little bit about what life was like for you, Tim, as a young person up to about high school, stop at high school, and then we'll transition into post high school after that.
So I'm near the St. Louis area. I'm actually on the Illinois side. My dad was a baseball player, really good athlete. My mom really didn't do sports, but I have a brother and a sister, a brother who's 5 years younger than me, and my sister's 9 years older than me. So pretty spaced out, but I was the middle one. So, and yeah, I went to O'Fallon Township High School, O'Fallon, Illinois. Like I said, there I played baseball, football, and wrestling. Trained year round. I would say wrestling makes the bodybuilding easy. Wrestling is way more torture than bodybuilding. And usually some of the best bodybuilders, as far as conditioning, used to wrestle, because it's a cakewalk bodybuilding as far as the diet compared to I got to drop 25 pounds in X amount of time. And it's not about keeping your muscle. It's about getting the weight down with wrestling. It was miserable. And then my weight would go up for football, and then I have to drop it. It was tough, but it, like I said, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable is very important part of being successful in life. Ask any successful businessman, there are times that they're going to have to push through way past the comfort level in order to be super successful. We live in a society that's all about comfort to an extent, and those are the people who aren't succeeding. Sometimes you have to push those barriers, and that's what a contest prep is. But guess what? That part of the contest prep is over. Now it's comfort zone.
So talk a little bit about the WWF wrestling in terms of what was the attraction, what was the draw to you? I think your Instagram your email has 88 in it, so I'm assuming you were born in 88.
Yes, I was born.
So I was born in 87. So you and I grew up. We're 90s kids, right? Early 2000s, as teens. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I watched WWF and I was very attracted to that myself. But just talk about what that wrestling, you know, because it's real, but it's fake. You know, we all understand that it's not like the wrestling you were talking about and doing when you were younger and in high school and stuff. But there's something about these guys, you know, these masculine guys with the muscles and, you know, the physicality. I think that really attracted most of us young people. Is that what attracted you? Talk a little bit about that a little bit more, Tim, because I feel like that's something that's really lacking in our culture today. Just a strong, masculine individuals that are good examples. Not saying all those wrestlers were good examples, but you get my point.
Yeah, I mean, being a man, that was part of being a man. Be alpha, be strong, be assertive, to the point, get the job done. That's, you know, nowadays it's just totally different. And I'm glad that you were in the same age group, so you kind of understand that. But I feel like that was a huge reason why I got into bodybuilding and decided my path. And that's why I think kids nowadays, I think it's very important to know what's going through their heads at, 12, 13 years old, because that's when I really was influenced by the wrestling. And it wasn't just, it was entertainment, and everybody was talking about it at the lunch table. Did you see blah, 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 whatever match it was, Then you'd have Raw, be flipping the channel between Nitro and Raw. And I guarantee a lot of these other guys you're talking to probably watched it, but probably didn't bring it up. But I really think that was a big reason why I got into what I do.
I love that. What was the academic side of things for you when you were younger? Did you enjoy school or not so much?
I'm a math guy, so I enjoy school. I actually have a finance degree.
Oh, wow.
And I do what I do here because I love it. And it's math. Everything I do, I'm gonna turn the fan. Everything I do is math. Every little scenario with what I do is technically math. When you do a diet plan, cardio, training, everything's got a modality that has an equation to it. And you're trying to find X, keep X here. So perfect example, many people will hire you to coach them, okay? And they've got all this jumbled inconsistency. So we say, all right, here's this plan. This might not be perfect at first, but here is X. And they get Y result. Here's the adjustments I have to make with X to get Y result we're looking for. The biggest problem is consistency. So when somebody starts with me, the first 4 weeks, the client has to be all in and follow the plan so we know what happens. So here's X, here was Y result. This is the adjustments you have to make. And that's the problem nowadays is when you have all these a lot of people are listening to too many people. So they'll follow a little bit of what you're saying and then somebody else, not always, but you'll have people that do that and it changes the whole equation. And I know it is because I can tell them, oh, well, since you did this, you ruined this, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's all math. Everything you do is technically math as far as what we do.
Yeah.
That's why I like it, because 8 times 8 is always 64. I don't care how much you want it to be 65 or 62. 8 times 8 is 64. That's the answer.
Yeah.
It's black and white. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that correlates into bodybuilding quite significantly. So, okay. Now, so you mentioned growing up playing sports. Is there anything that your mom and your dad, Tim, that you specifically can kind of pinpoint looking back on your childhood that they really instilled in you, or something that they kind of pass along to you that really is important in your life now as a grown adult?
Honestly, my dad was all into sports. So kind of pushed me to want to compete in certain things. My mom was very organized. My dad was unorganized. So using those two aspects, if I want to be successful, I need to be organized and whatnot. So, little bit tidbits, but mainly I kind of found my own path through my own means.
Yeah.
You know, I was in high school and was reading up on bodybuilding.com and meal prepping myself. Oh, the worst chicken you could make, baking it, overcooking it, drying it the hell out, and then throwing a bunch of hot sauce on it and just getting it down, because it was all about just getting it in. I didn't care. I just wanted to be big and strong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm sure there's kids like that.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot. There's probably, like you were saying, a little bit less, because it's not as, you know, and back then protein shakes don't taste like they do now.
Yeah.
They've updated supplements a lot more enjoyable.
It's called sucralose, right? That's the sweetener that gets everybody nowadays.
Yes, it helps, because back then they were really chalky. I remember going to GNC was the only supplement store back then. You know, now you've got Amazon and all these other places, and I'm actually a S2 faction first form athlete. So, you know, I use Formula One products. I like them a lot. But regardless, back then it was all about GNC that I mainly could remember.
Yeah, same here. And I remember before there was even like the blender bottles that had the little metal thing that would break up the clumps in the protein. So I remember shaking protein and you would drink it and you'd be drinking chunks, and it was disgusting. It didn't taste good. You'd be choking on chunks of protein, but it's like, hey dude, you gotta eat big to get big. They used to say in the magazines, right? So
do whatever it took, right?
Yeah. Now let's get into a little bit of, so once you were finishing up with high school, Tim, did you have some thoughts? Obviously you did, because you went to college, you got your finance degree, but what were you thinking about when you were in high school as a teenager that you wanted to be when you grew up, or what type of career did you want to pursue? And then once you graduated high school, how did life kind of take you, just transitioning into your Eastern Illinois college talk?
Believe it or not, back then as a kid, it was pro athlete or cop. That's what it was all about. Because my grandpa was a security guard officer, and he loved that I called him a cop, even though he was a security guard guy. And I thought it would be cool to be a cop or an athlete of some sort.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Didn't really think about all that much until I went to school. I mean, that's what you always hear, right?
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to do until you go to college.
So talk about going to Eastern Illinois. Why did you go there? And then you got your degree in finance. So just talk about at least figuring out on some degree what you were going to study once you got to college. You know,
I went to Eastern because it was only 2.5 hours away. It was far enough to get away, but not too far to where I couldn't come back on the weekends or something. It's a Division 1A school, so it's pretty big. I will tell you, there was a couple good things about Eastern that really helped me. I joined a fraternity my freshman year and rushed, and I used to be very shy. And that honestly really helped me talk to people. Like right now, if I wouldn't have been in the fraternity, and, you know, I talk to people all day because I train people for a living, but that was a big obstacle for me. I used to get social anxiety, and me forcing myself, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, as I've said this 3 times now, forced me to be better with conversations with people. That's part of the process, but the fraternity was very good as far as that goes. And then, you know, I used to get so much shit because I'd be doing the bodybuilding and the powerlifting meets and not drink, be at parties, and but I'm like, dude, I got to meet fucking 2 weeks. You're going to be the first one to clap my back when I win, but then you're the first one to give me shit about not drinking. So, you know, I've always dealt with that. People giving you shit because you're not doing what they want you to do. But that, you know, I learned that. But yeah, the fraternity life was good as far as learning and talking to people. And I enjoyed going to a bigger school, meet people. I actually have a lot of clients that I've met through Eastern that live in most people who go to Eastern are more Chicago, up north. I'm down south, Southern Illinois. So I actually built quite a bit of clients through there.
Nice.
So Eastern it's a party. It's 50% Greek. So it made it easy to go Greek when it's 50% Greek back then.
And
I
then,
never thought about being in a fraternity.
what's that?
I never thought about being in a fraternity.
Hmm.
It just happened.
How did you come to, so since you were shy and stuff, I mean, how did you find yourself in a fraternity? Who convinced you, or how did you convince yourself to do that? 'Cause
All the dudes in there, you know, when you're a freshman going in there benching 315 for 10, they're going to talk to you. You know what I mean? Because we had this thing called tug of war tugs when there was a Greek competition. That was like the big deal. So they're all like, man, you'd be a great tugger, you know, and I'm in there lifting a bunch of weight. I mean, that's really probably was the ice. Lifting was the ice or that got the conversations going, because people are like, man, you're strong. You know, people talk to you just like with the wrestling. You're a bigger guy. That's something they're going to bring up. You know, you go to the gas station and, man, you're jacked. You know, it's a conversation starter.
Yeah.
Makes you feel good. But sometimes it's like, fuck, I just want to take a piss. You know what I mean? But it's a good thing. I always say it can be an annoyance, but in the long run, it actually is a good thing. It's nice to be recognized for your hard work. When you're doing bodybuilding, everyone can see it. But when maybe you do something else, people don't see it because it's not out in the open like that.
Right.
So.
Okay. Now, let's transition into kind of getting into more of the lifting and bodybuilding talk. So you said that you actually were powerlifting for 3 years in college. So how did you kind of get into powerlifting, and then talk about the transition into bodybuilding, if you don't mind, Tim?
So real quick. So in high school football, you don't really train bodybuilding. It's more like 5x5 training. Bigger, stronger, faster was our high school program.
Mine
so
too.
Was it you too?
Yeah.
So 5x5 is more tailored towards powerlifting. There was no hypertrophy style training, except for when you're doing bicep 21s or whatever for your routine. So I would do upper and lower body splits 4 days a week. I did that probably for 3 years, lifted 4 times. I would do 2 upper days, 2 lower days. Okay. And then eventually, like I said, I was getting some knee and hip stuff, and, I'm like, I want to train a little differently. So that's what got me into bodybuilding. That wrestling background helped me mentally. I mean, I remember my first show, I was doing an absurd amount of cardio because I had a lot of body fat, and I only dieted for 12 weeks. Huge mistake. But I was the most conditioned guy and the biggest. Mm-hmm. But I had to really, really, really diet way harder than I do now. Yeah. But I mean, that's literally how I was training. And then my buddy John Rhodes helped me diet for my first show. Very low carb, high cardio, 12 weeks. The biggest problem was 12 weeks. 12 weeks to lose 40 pounds is a lot. Tall obstacle.
So how old were you then when you did your first competition, Tim?
I was a senior, so I want to say I was 22. Okay. And I'm 34 now. Okay. So that was 2011 when I competed there.
And how did that first competition go? Did you enjoy it, or what was the result?
I love that I love that I won the overall. So the things I liked about it was I was pretty decent at it. The thing, as far as the physique and the dieting and stuff, the things I hated, horrible poser. Posing is not a natural thing for me. I've had to really, really, really think about my posing. Posing is not something I'm good at, but I've worked hard on it. That's why I'm good at teaching people who aren't good at posing, because a lot of times people will use these vague terminologies, and it's like, that doesn't work for me. I'm analytical. This doesn't work for me. So the posing was hard, and I hated that my buddy John, I'm a hairy motherfucker. So I had to have another guy shave my ass, shave my back, shave my hamstrings. I had cuts everywhere. Hated that. And I hated the spray tan because at that show, you had to do your own tan. There was no tan backstage. You had to do pro tan on your own back then. You didn't have a promoter. You had to have somebody tan you 3 days in a row. You know, I didn't know all that stuff. So I hated the tan and I hated the shaving. Other than that, I enjoyed it. And actually that's why I didn't compete for a couple of years, because I'm like, man, I just want to look good. I don't give a shit about getting on stage because of all the hair and shit.
Yeah.
Literally, that is the word. There's nothing more uncomfortable than bending over, touching your toes, and letting your buddy shave your ass and hamstrings for you.
It is one of the most unfavorable parts of competing is the shaving. I'll definitely say amen to that. Now, okay, so you're 22, you compete in your first competition, and then you said it sounds like you took a couple years off. Why don't you just walk us through then some of the highlights of your competing, or just touch on some of your competition history, please?
So 2011 was Eastern Illinois. I did that show. Then I actually did a show right after that, the following weekend. I think it's called NPC Mid-Illinois. It's a novice only show. So that's how I did my first NPC show, the week right after. Boom, done. I think I got second or third, which is really good. There were 17 guys in my class. So that was really good. Then I took 2012, 2013, 2014 off. I was competing at like 180 back then. 176, maybe 180, something like that. And then 2015, I competed at like 192. Battle of the Bluff, I won the overall there. And then 2017, I did the NPC Midwest. I actually have the trophies over here, but yeah, that year I was a heavyweight, maybe like 206. I won that show. And then let's see, 2018, I did Arkansas. I won that show. There's one in between there. I got second. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but there was another show that was right before. Oh, I did North Americans and got sixth. We dropped to light heavyweight because I was like 206, 207. I got down to 198. It was horrible, miserable to make weight. There's nothing worse than a long, long drive and you're taking Expel and drinking so many fluids. You got to pee every 5 minutes and you're hungry, tired. And at the time, my girlfriend at the time and I were kind of in a argument stage. So it was a tough, that North Americans was a very tough trip, but getting sixth my first national show as a light heavyweight, very fucking flat. I did not like my look. I didn't even post any pictures because I didn't like my look, but I definitely was shredded. And I'm like, I'm never going to show up that depleted again. That was 2018. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry. That was 2019. But you get it. 2019. Yeah. And then I did that North Americans. And then 2020, I ended up taking a year off completely and decided to grow. I remember I told you I was a 198. I competed at 220, at 2020, at 220, but I wasn't conditioned enough, but I got sixth at nationals in the heavyweight class. So I bumped up 22 pounds, but I would say if I wanted to do really well, I needed to be 210, 211, 212. And
what year was that, Tim?
2020, December or November of 2020. And then this past year, so that was 2020, and I rotate another year, 2021, last year at this time, I competed at 222, but was way harder. I pretty much had the conditioning of the light heavyweight year, but was 221, 222. And then this year, I'm gonna make weight. I'm gonna be a little heavier, but I'm even fucking harder than last year. much harder. So I'm happy with the process. Remember, I'm not talking about other people because you can only correct your physique. I don't care about Instagram. Right now, I'm actually not even looking at people's Instagram because it's all bullshit, because you have to focus on yourself. It's an equation. You're worrying about your own equation. Get it done. If I'm over here, I'm not focused on what I need to do. So that's the one problem with social media is people get lost in translation when they need to be so focused on what they're doing. But guys like yourself, it's great. You're helping a lot of guys with their marketing. Seriously, you're doing really, I like what you're doing with it, because the amateurs don't get much publicity anymore. Back in the day, they used to have all the magazines and stuff. So
what place did you get then at last year's Nationals?
I got 5th.
Okay.
Yep. There's 40 plus guys. I got 5th. Yep. Some of the guys, Walter, he got 3rd. Shear and then what's his name? Janowitz got 1st and 2nd. And then Bell got 4th. I don't know if you've talked to him, Brandon Bell, but
he'll be on tomorrow morning at 6:30.
He got 4th last year. He beat me by 1 and Debs beat me by 2, but we were all stacked right next to each other. Yeah, it was good. You know what? That show, really, I enjoyed the improvements I've made. It really helped set the foundation for this pro.
Yeah.
Because right when I did that show, I'm like, I'm doing this fucking show next year. I'm going to be even better than I was last year. So.
All right. Now let's take a step back here before we take a couple steps forward. So kind of in the beginning, Tim, when you kind of got into bodybuilding, you did your first competition and then, you're competing a little bit. At what point in the beginning of this bodybuilding experience did you say, hey, this is the direction that I'm going to go with my life? I love this, and I'm just going to see where it takes me. Like, at what point was that for you?
Well, I would say when I started training more clients online, or contest prep and helping clients online, because you could study things all you want, but unless you're physically doing it, you learn so much more. Like if me and you were talking about screwdrivers and different type of tools, there's only so much you can know by reading. But if me and you go outside and we do a bunch of work with it, you have a new foundation of knowledge by doing. And I enjoy the doing aspect. And I was getting successful with clients and I enjoyed the process. So remember, part of it is I'm double dipping. My hobby is also with my job. So luckily for me, there's a lot of benefits to me doing this. A lot of other people, it's just a hobby, but there's no financial benefits for them. They're just doing it for the love of the game, which I really respect. Guy doing UPS driver, working 60 hours a week, his bodybuilding doesn't really make him anything or help him with anything. But I respect that some of these guys, that's what they do. They just love it. I love it. I love the training and stuff. I don't have to compete to be happy. But yeah, I would say when I got into personal training and the nutrition and coaching and all that.
So when you graduated college with your finance degree, did you work in the business finance world for a while? When did you kind of start personal training, and did that become kind of your career and your lifelong job?
Right when I got out of school, I instantly got a job bouncing, and I started training people right out of the gate while I was looking for jobs. Okay. But I started getting busy, and I also got a job in a nutrition store. So I had 3 jobs. I had a nutrition store. I was bouncing and I was training. Okay. So anytime people would come into the supplement store, I found a client for training. And when I'm out and about bouncing, I was getting jobs. So I ended up building my business by doing those other jobs, and I ended up not doing anything in the financial world. But I do stuff in the financial world, but it's with my own money.
Right.
It's not, I'm not doing it for a paycheck.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
My goal.
Yeah. Now, do you have your own gym, or do you just lease a space? How does that work for your training in-person clients?
I pay a low rent at a gym, and I have a very good deal. It's called the Fitness Zone in O'Fallon, 24-hour gym. It's actually where most people who compete in my little section go. It's a very good gym. Love it.
Cool.
Yeah, I pay a low rent. Most gyms, you pay probably 50% of your PT money back to the owner. I pay $100 a month rent.
Wow.
And I can charge, yeah, that's where the finance comes in. Because I went to a gym that was hurting. That gym was hurting. They were going to go out of business. And I shuffled my deal together, and now I'm pretty successful at it because everything's about timing, and it was a good time for it. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I want to talk a little bit more about business, because I own a gym and train people in person. I love business talk. So we'll finish up the business talk. We'll get back into bodybuilding. But so in terms of having like a vision or setting goals for business, do you have like a long-term vision or a long-term goal for the training in person, online? Like, what does that kind of look like for you? Or do you just kind of take it month by month, or, year by year? What does that look like for you business-wise, Tim?
Really, I believe to be very successful in business, you need to have a 3-tier model of making money. Okay. You have your in-person. Okay. We all know what that is. You have your online coaching. And then the third part, which is what I really want to do, is I want to help other trainers build their business. I am really good at troubleshooting problems. That is my best attribute, is I'm really good at troubleshooting problems. Who else would benefit more from that kind of business model than another trainer who's trying to build their business? Like, for instance, a consultation. Someone has a client who's having X and Y, Z digestive problems. I have a lot of other trainers who coach me, I have a lot of other trainers who coach people who will contact me because they have a client who's having digestive problems. I'm really good with digestion. And I will give them my tidbits on what they need to do, and they just pay an hourly consultation fee. Realistically, I want to only train a couple hours a day in the gym, and the rest I would love to work from home and use my brain as my labor instead of my body. I would enjoy it more. I'm sure you're the same way, because here's what happens. You set up times with your clients. It's fucking 7 o'clock. You're training them. I just did my freaking fasted cardio from 6 to 6:40. It's a 20-minute drive to the gym. I got a text at 6:50. Hey man, I don't feel so good. I got a stomach ache. I'm a little hungover. I'll text people, fuck that. You're supposed to give me an hour or two in advance. You're getting charged today. I am straight to the book answer type of person. I don't deal with bullshit. I will just hire somebody else. Good luck. Your body doesn't care about your excuses. So that's the problem with personal training. Even though personal training, you get paid more per hour. But remember, at the same time, I could be answering emails and all kinds of other things. You got to have to equate things in a different aspect. I'm sure you deal with that, but I do have a lot of awesome in-person clients. But then what happens is you get those few that really just kind of burn your bridges, especially when you're in a contest prep and you're tired, you're exhausted, and you get a text from them while you're doing stairs and you got 5 minutes left and I'm tired. I'm not going to be there today. That happened last prep. 2021, 2 weeks out. Specifically, I remember a client texting that I flipped. My girlfriend Kara was right next to me on the stairs. She goes, "What happened?" And told her what happened. I just, you're a little more on edge because you're tired, you're exhausted. People always ask, what does it feel like when people do that to you? I say, well, or having conversations with you when you're really exhausted. I say, well, imagine running 40-yard dashes, breathing, and then people are asking you questions. You're just not going to have the same tone.
Right.
That's the feeling it is. But as far as your business goes, I really think a 3-tier model of some sort is always best. Maybe an app or something is always a good model, but I really think any type of 3-tier model, one that's directly in person, you pay more per hour for that. One that's a little less of a hands-on reach online, of course. And then third could be just like phone consultations or an app or some sort.
Yeah, I love that.
Because I like the consultation idea. So for instance, you know a lot about what you do, but let's say you wanted to pick somebody's brain, do a totally different routine. And you don't want to pay for coaching, but you want to pay for a knowledge base or certain type of format. You can format it yourself, but you have somebody that's kind of explaining this format for you, kind of gives you the layout, and you could fill in the gaps you want and not pay for coaching, but you have the layout by someone who you trust.
Right.
I feel like that's a great coaching model, but a lot of it's hands-on coaching, verbatim stuff. And sometimes that's not what you need. Sometimes you need something, especially if you're another coach, all that kind of stuff, which you don't need to do every little supplement, like, milk thistle. Maybe you like Tudka better. You know what I mean? There's a lot to it, but I think that's a good model.
Yeah, I love that. And I think something else, just for anybody that's watching or listening to this, that, is maybe a trainer, owns a gym, kind of in our lanes, so to speak, Tim, there's something that is important that I've realized is like the in-person training, which I thoroughly enjoy that. But the reality is there's a ceiling to that, because it's only you, it's only me, right? Like we can only train so many people in person in a day, right? And then I think another model is maybe you have trainers underneath you. But I think that's something for any personal trainers out there, start thinking about how can you make more money? Exactly what you're talking about, Tim. I love that 3-tier system, but thinking about like, okay, even if you are like me, you love that in-person personal training, there's ceilings, there's a limitation because there's only one of us. So I love you bringing that up. Now let's transition back into bodybuilding talk. I wanted to talk specifically about this prep. Now I know you competed in Des Moines, Iowa here just like 2 weekends ago. I'm in Iowa, and I saw some of the results of that. So talk about stepping off stage last year at Nationals, and you told yourself, hey, I'm going to do Nationals next year. Walk us through the process of setting yourself up for success at Nationals this year, in terms of what did your entire year this year look like going into Des Moines and then going into Nationals next weekend?
So start from end of last prep.
Correct.
So I took a week off, originally just, do the show, take a week off. And then I kind of start a quote unquote deload phase, just to kind of let the body heal for a month or two. Then I got into off season, hit it pretty hard until about July, hitting it hard, heavy food. Every 3 months, I take 1 week off. So I like doing because there's 52 weeks in a year. Okay. Every 13th week, my girlfriend and I would take a week off. So that every year, that's 4 weeks off. Okay. So that's what we were doing. We set ourselves up for that. I really enjoyed that. Increase the food, trying to grow, got up at about 260 or so. And then I like to diet a little harder when I start. A lot of guys kind of like to tiptoe, but you are the fattest and have the most body fat when you start. So the odds of losing muscle in the beginning are a lot less. A lot of guys, what they do is they hit the hammer hard at the end. I like to start a little harder, and then you can kind of ease the brakes off, so to speak, as you're getting in shape. Now, Iowa was what, it'll be 2 weekends ago. Did pretty, I won the show. I liked my look. Was very full. My feedback was coming a little tighter, which that was the plan. Was coming a little tighter. Some of the stuff that you run, you keep it in because the main goal is nationals. So I'm already about 4 or 5 pounds tighter than I was at Iowa. So it's Iowa was a good run. There were some good competitors there. And it's a good chance to practice being on stage. I mean, that's part of the game. You got to get comfortable with being in front of the judges. And that's why I always believe in doing that show. I did Iowa last year too, before, but I didn't win. I lost in the overall. But going into Iowa, I wanted to be 90 to 95%. I got that. And just dialed things in these last 2 weeks. And now cruising into Nationals week, peak week.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, basically just had a little bit more to chop off. Time, And actually, when you get that big influx of food for 2 days after the show, your metabolism kind of just speeds up too. And shit, the following Saturday, I went eating whatever I wanted Saturday evening and Sunday. I probably weighed 3 pounds lighter than I did the Friday, the weigh-ins compared, in a week. Your metabolism kind of needs that speed up. So that you ever hear about people taking a diet break or sometimes that's a great tool to use if someone's stalling, because sometimes that's all they need, because you're getting rid of that cortisol release. You're getting rid of, you're getting better sleep for a couple of days. Sometimes that's all that's needed for the body. And I really think a lot of guys who do that, they end up looking better. Some guys decide not to do a show before nationals. And I don't know. I think it's good to get the jitters out, man. I think it's very important. You want to have your posing polished. So, and like I mentioned earlier, posing was always been a struggle for me. So, and social anxiety and all that. So it's a great tool for me to use to prep for a show. Yep.
So, so the Iowa show, that was something that you didn't have to do because you were already qualified for nationals this year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so that, just to reiterate, because this is kind of something a little bit unique from some of the other people I've had on, because most people, if they're qualified, they don't do a competition going into their pro qualifier. So I want to just touch on this a little bit more. So you did Iowa, basically, from what I'm gathering from you, Tim, as kind of like a warm up to kind of get the jitters out, just as a test run, so to speak. Is that correct?
Yes. And a lot of those judges, I think 4 of those 7 judges are going to be judging me at nationals. So they're already just saw me. They're going to be like, damn, he's way tighter than he was 3 weeks ago. I mean, I'm playing my cards right. Yeah. A lot of guys are cheap. You do that little extra show between, it helps. It's guaranteed. It's more of a benefit than not.
Yeah. And
I wasn't peaking for Iowa. Iowa was, this is where I'm at 3 weeks out. Keep the ball rolling. That's just how I played it.
Yeah.
Also, my girlfriend did that show too. She won the overall bikini. So, I'm going to be, so think about this. You're paying for tickets. Okay. You're paying $100-something for tickets. You might as well pay the $150, pay $50 more and just compete. Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why not just compete? You're paying $100 for the tickets and that's $150 to do the show. Why not just do the show? That's how I look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's smart. It's that math brain of yours, Tim.
That's right.
It's all equations, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now I want on a serious note here, going into nationals, you sound like you're a pretty straightforward guy. So I think I'm going to get a straightforward answer from you, not the politically correct answer that some people like to give. What is your expectation for yourself, Tim, at nationals this year? What are you going there to accomplish?
At least top 4.
Okay.
Got 5th, got 6th the year before, got 5th. Now I would like top 4, preferably top 2.
Cool. So what is your long-term ultimate bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding goal for yourself?
Man, I'd love to get my pro card and at least compete in one pro show. Do at least one pro show. To say I did one, and see how I stack up. So that way, business-wise, it looks good too. You got your pro card and you actually competed as a pro, and that'd be cool to, be in the mix. Being in the mix at a pro show is pretty legitimate.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about training for a quick minute, because a lot of people love to hear that from you guys. So how has your training, since you first started kind of you transitioned from powerlifting into bodybuilding, what was your training like kind of in the beginning of your bodybuilding experience, and how has it transformed or evolved over the years, and what does it currently kind of look like, Tim?
Bodybuilding, when I started, was what they did in the magazine. Super high volume, lots of reps, short rest, stuff that you'd see 5 sets of 15, 12 to 15, 45 to 60 second rest periods. That's how I started. Got some results from that, but really everybody's physique's a little bit different. I respond a lot better to low to medium volume. I do 2 hard sets on everything. I'll do a warm up, ramp up, and then 2 hard working sets. And my philosophy is full recovery between sets. If the exercise is bicep curls, you don't need as much rest as you do for like hack squats. The full recovery, so to speak, depends on the movement and the exercise you're doing. And I'm a big believer in slow, deliberate negatives. I'm a lower rep guy just by default because I do longer negatives. So for instance, yesterday, hack squats, we're doing 2 sets, 6 to 8 reps, 4-second negatives for our 2 working sets. That's our pendulum. We did pendulum squats yesterday, but regardless, that's my philosophy. I like 30 to 40 seconds of hard tension per movement.
Nice. And what's your
keep it on the muscle? A lot of times people are not keeping it on the muscle and they wonder why that area isn't growing. So
what's kind of what's your training split been like this year?
It's very simply, Sundays we do quads and calves. Monday we do arms. Tuesday I don't train. That's the rest day. That day I do chiropractor and massage therapy. Wednesdays I do back and rear delts. Thursday is ham and glutes. And then Friday is chest and delts. And then Saturday is the other rest day. Pretty simple. Everything once a week, really hard. And I like to do arms right after quads because quads is the most demanding workout, while arms is the least demanding. Back is probably the second. That and ham and glutes are probably second hardest. And then chest and shoulders is probably towards the bottom of that, and arms are the least taxing. And areas I need to work on the most was my back and ham and glutes. So that's why I wanted to put them full force. Chest and shoulders have always been good. Can only put so much wattage in a week, but the areas that need the most improvement deserve the most wattage. So that's why it's set up that way.
Okay. All right. Now you said on Tuesdays you get chiropractic work done and massage. And I go to the chiro once a week, and I also get massage, some sort of body work done once a week. So I'm a huge proponent of that. I love that you said that, because a lot of the guys, even IFBB pros that come on here, don't get massage, don't get chiropractic work. And I just think they're asking for an injury. So why do you do chiro and massage once a week? Talk about the importance of that for you, Tim.
Well, if you think about bodybuilding, it's all about posture. So if you're growing out of posture, your physique is not going to flow the way it's supposed to. So, you know, if you've got all these metabolites and all this protein, all these supplements you're taking, growing, but you're growing out of alignment, it's not always a good thing. I'd rather you grow slower and grow in alignment. So I've really noticed my physique has really grown in symmetry and posture by doing this kind of work.
Cool.
Makes a big difference. Plus, people don't realize how tight you are. You know, bodybuilding training is very taxing on the body. You have to get this stuff done if you really want to maximize yourself. You know, exercise and training are two different things. Exercise is more for feeling good, retrain. You know what I mean? So I really think it's vital, and it really helped with my leg separation.
What type of body work or massage do you get done?
I get deep tissue massage. I see my chiropractor. So this week we're actually doing it tomorrow because we're leaving tomorrow evening to go to Florida. So I'll see the chiropractor. He'll adjust me. He'll scrape me. All of those type of things. And then immediately after, 10-minute drive down the road, I get a deep tissue. And I usually switch. Like tomorrow she's going to do legs. He's going to do upper body. So, yeah. So I think it's vital. Yeah, it costs you a little bit of money. But if you get injured, doesn't that cost you a lot of money? You know what I mean? Yeah. People don't equate things in the right realm. You know, they'll spend, you know, no problem spending a couple G's on new rims that you can always buy a new car. But if your body's fucked up, guess what? You don't get a replacement. That's my philosophy. I tell my clients that. That's what you can tell your clients. Yeah. You can always get a new car. You can always get a new alternating converter, but you cannot get a new back, new shoulder, or whatever is injured. Right. What damage is done.
Right on, man. I agree 1,000%. Okay, we're gonna start wrapping up here, Tim. Now let's talk a little bit more. I want you mentioned getting comfortable with uncomfortable. You mentioned that quite a few times through you sharing your story. So was that something that you really picked up through wrestling? And just talk a little bit more about how important it is in terms of not just bodybuilding, not just business, but as human beings, why it's so important to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in terms of progression and growth, again, as a human being, but also as business and bodybuilding.
So I've really thought about it more the last couple of years. Okay. And I want you to think about religion for 1 second. Okay. Ramadan. They can't drink any water, no food until it's nighttime. Okay. What happens when you do that? You cherish the simple things in life. Okay. So for instance, when I'm doing this bodybuilding show and I'm on my feet all day training people and eating all this stuff, at the end of the day, when I get to sit down and watch a half hour of Netflix or an hour of television, I embrace it. While the kid who's eating Cheetos and drinking Mountain Dew all day and doesn't do anything active and it's sitting, do you think he really cherishes that 1 hour from hour 8 to hour 9 of him sitting down on the couch? No, he does not. So it's more of a life thing that I've noticed over time. Sometimes I think it would be good for our society to do, you know, I'm not saying we need to do Ramadan, but it's important for people to cherish the life we have. I mean, we're spoiled. We are spoiled. And, you know, we complain more because we have more. Sometimes you complain more because you ever go on a vacation, you come back and you notice, man, I'm bitching about the little stuff because you just had everything handed to you. Maybe you went on a cruise and all the food was there. You had a maid doing your stuff and you come back and you're like, I gotta make the bed and blah, blah, blah. It's just something, you know, and then with bodybuilding, of course, you gotta be comfortable with being uncomfortable as far as that goes. But I'm just looking at things as a life aspect. That's why I mentioned Ramadan.
Right. So I want to talk quickly here in closing and wrapping things up about the person that kind of oversees your prep and all that, your coach, or I think before we turned on the mic, you said he's more of a friend, but you said this gentleman, Brett, kind of oversees your prep and stuff. So talk about that.
Yeah, Brett Becker, Midwest Chest on Instagram. He's competed in hundreds of shows. He was the guy in my area for a long time. I think he's turning 50 probably in a year or two, and he's really dialed in on my posing, gave me different avenues and aspects. He's a nurse practitioner, knows a lot about health. For me, that's very crucial when hiring somebody, and he's very he already messaged me while we've had this phone call. So very assertive, someone to really talk to, keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
You got to have people in your corner.
Yeah. So I'm assuming then, you know, you being a coach yourself, you are a huge proponent of coaches having coaches and surrounding themselves with people that are going to help them grow as an individual. Is that correct?
Yes. Why else does financial advisors have financial advisors? Ask yourself that. That's the truth. Mm-hmm. And same with what I do. Yes. Cool. I think it's important. You have to have somebody to keep in contact with. I mean, that's why Phil Heath has a coach. All the top bodybuilders have a coach.
Right.
It's kind of how it goes, man.
Yeah, it is for sure. Even back, you know, in the early 2000s when we were kind of obviously a little bit younger, but you know, the Jay Cutlers, the Ronnie Colemans, all of those guys had coaches, even when the coach thing wasn't really a thing, you know, they still had coaches, right? So that just kind of goes to show you Michael Jordan had a coach, Tom Brady has a coach, plus he has his own personal trainer. So you're exactly right. I agree with you 1,000%. Okay. Fun question for you, Tim, and then we'll close it out. Give me your top 2 gym pet peeves.
Top 2. Well, everyone complains about this, but I don't like the guys who put hundreds and hundreds of pounds on the leg press and then leave it out. Yeah. And then, you know, you have girls who can't get onto the machine. That's number 1. Number 2, from a client's perspective, get off your phone and concentrate on what you're doing. I always use this analogy. I hope it's okay, but I always ask people, I go, can you orgasm if you're texting on your phone while you're fucking at the same time? And the answer is no. Same with your training. There's no way you're 100% focused on what you're doing if you're texting and answering memes and answering. Honestly, that's why I'm lucky at my gym. We have speakers and I plug my phone in and let it play. And I don't look at my phone until the workout is over. I think that is huge. And honestly, I think another life thing, people are so dialed in on their phone. And it's like, does this communication really mean anything right now? No, it doesn't usually. So do you have that problem with your clients? Sometimes, you know, they're so focused on some non-important thing, or they're texting between sets, and you know, you'll tell them, go over there and it's back day, and they're going to the leg curl machine. I'm like, it's back day. Why are you going to the leg curl? I know you're not paying attention.
Right. Yeah. 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 I mean, for me, I'm very fortunate. I've got some great clients. The majority of my clients are actually youth, and their parents are paying pretty good money to have them with me for 60 minutes at the gym. So and the parents know, I know, and the student or the youth understands that when they come to Victory Gym, it's all business. And I'm kind of an all business type of a guy. And so I don't really have a lot of those issues because I honestly, I wouldn't put up with it. That's just the truth. Now, if it's an adult, they got their parents and stuff, they got their own businesses, they got to check their phone. I get that in between sets, but I'm very fortunate. Again, I've got great clients. I don't really have to deal with a lot of that stuff. But I know what you're saying, because I hear about it from you guys all the time on the podcast and see it at other gyms. It's crazy. I want you to touch on this really quick, Tim. You mentioned earlier that you're kind of like off social media at this time. I'm bringing on somebody, Zach Pryor, who I think he's probably going to win the light heavies this year at Nationals and get his pro card. He went off social media a couple of days ago. Talk about why it's important for you to be off social media going into Nationals this week, kind of that peak week.
You get lots of messages, people asking how you feeling, blah, 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 which is great. They care. Then you have other people sending you pictures of this guy and this guy and this guy. But remember, like I said, it's math. Should I be looking at what this guy's doing for his answer and this guy? No, my answer is right here. I just have to bring my best package and do my best thing. And that gives me my best odds. That's how you have to attack it. You know what I mean? You can do all that other stuff later.
Yeah.
It just right now, I use the term bandwidth. Right now, the bandwidth is low. So you don't have any extra energy to put forth on the extras. Yeah. Bare bones, essential mindset is all you can do.
We're gonna end it right there, man. You gave us some great tidbits and life wisdom, Tim. So before I do a quick outro and I do let you go, I always want to give my guests kind of the opportunity to share any final thoughts, any final words, any shout outs. Make sure you give us your Instagram. I always want to kind of let you guys wrap things up before I do the outro. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Tim, and then I'll close this out.
Yeah, first off, for you, I really like what you're trying to do, or what you are doing. You're setting up a nice little platform for the amateur bodybuilders and professionals. It's actually helping build your credibility in more people. I don't know, where are you from? Again? Iowa. Okay. So you're a Midwest guy too. Also, you're giving a lot of other people a platform to speak, which is important because, I think nowadays there isn't a lot of good platforms. There's so much stuff that people sit through, but it's nice that you got this page here. People can look at different competitors and what they all do. And, we're a small gist of the world. And as far as me go, yeah, I have 2 Instagram pages. Tim John 88 is my personal. Then I have Cline's Physiques with a C. That is one of my business Instagrams. Cool. So, and then my girlfriend who's competing, she's Casey Fit 90. She's going to be in bikini. She was a first call out last year in bikini as well. So look for her to do well. I know you mostly have bodybuilders on there, but yeah. So.
Now, before I do the outro here, I just want to make sure. So if somebody, not this week, but after Nationals, if somebody does want to reach out to you in terms of coaching, is Instagram the best way to connect with you? And then does your significant other, does she also do coaching for people as well?
Yes. Instagram's best. And yes, she does.
Okay, perfect. All right.
You're one of us.
Excellent. All right, Tim. I just want to say thank you for coming on, man. Good luck this next weekend at Nationals. I'm going to do a quick outro and then I'll let you go. Okay.
Perfect.
All right. All of you who are tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle podcast, I just want to say thank you so very much. I appreciate all of you. I value all of you. And as I always say, and as I will always continue to say, if it weren't for all of you, the podcast simply would not exist. It's just really exciting to see the Instagram growing, the YouTube's growing. And again, it's all because of your guys' support. So thank you so very much. Quickly here, as we wrap up this awesome conversation with Tim today, if you have not done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Then also take this episode with Tim. Please share it on your Instagram stories. Make sure you tag Tim, tag Behind the Muscle, so that we know that you listened specifically to this episode and found great value in it, in which I know you did. And then one other favor I want to ask of you guys today, if you're listening or watching this, make sure you go give Tim a follow on Instagram. Just give him some encouragement, even though he might not be on Instagram this week. Give him some encouragement as he is in the final stages of competition at Nationals next weekend. So just make sure you give him a follow as well. And then per the usual, I will leave you all with this. Remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.